Jaggy.
Good morning, guys. So as you could see, step one is to get this car up on 4 jack stands and get all our tools ready. So with a little help from the F-Type forum member, I guess we'll call him Stolen. I guess that's how you pronounce that. He has an excellent guide. And yeah, I'm basically using the tools needed for his guide. The only difference, as you can see, I crossed out a few things, is at the time, this was a one-sided rib belt, so you had to change out the idler pulley for a smooth idler pulley. That's no longer the case because of VelocityAP's custom belt, which is awesome. Made sure I had all my tools, a little checklist. Very important, guys, beer. That is a very important tool needed to get this job done. So we're gonna start. For me, I'm gonna make it easy. I'm gonna be removing the just the top part of the intake. So there's a Y, and I'll be showing you guys that once it's removed. So the top part of the intake that goes into the supercharger, just remove a couple of bolts. Gives you easy access afterwards to remove and install the belt. So that's my step one before putting this up on the stands. And then we're gonna get underneath, take the under tray out, which is probably the longest part of this job because there's like 30 to 40 screws, bolts, whatever you want to call them. And that's it. Then it's just the meticulous stuff, like cleaning the because we're using the same bolts for the new crank pulley, so just getting them out. They're Loctited in with blue Loctite. Get the blue Loctite off, clean the interior, the treads on the inside, clean them out, get everything nice and clean, apply some fresh Loctite on there, and then just get everything bolted back on and put the fresh tune in there that took 24 hours to get back, not even. Velocity's so fast. Uploaded my stock file, and I think, within 8 hours even, I'd have to check my email, but the next day I had my new tune. So I'm gonna flash the car once this is all done, and we're gonna take it for a rip. Can't wait, guys. So guys, as you could see, the intake pipe that goes into the supercharger was removed. Very simple. A bolt here, undo the 3 clamps. I just took my time, cleaned it up, loosened the bolt right here, and as you could see now, great access to the supercharger. It really freed up some space, and it's super quick, guys. I would recommend doing it. It also gives you a good view, as you can see here. This is very simple with a tab. It just pops back in after, nothing complicated. And as you can see how it's routed, there's your supercharger pulley, and the belt is routed very simply. There's one tensioner that keeps this belt into place. Stolen forum member did a great job. He provided some pictures of how the belt is routed. You really can't go wrong. It's pretty straightforward. So now we're gonna jack the car up and get access from underneath. So I'll see you guys soon. Hey guys, so just to give you an idea of the jacking points here, in the front, I put the jack stands underneath the strongest part of the suspension knuckle. So nice and safe where the suspension meets the frame of the car, as you can see. And with the F-Type, and actually with many cars these days, very simple. As you can see, there's an arrow, and then you just jack right there where that ridge of metal is. What you do is take your jack, perfect example right here. There's your arrow. You take a puck, a hockey puck, and there's where the subframe mounts to the frame of the car. So that's a good point. And I like to use a rule again here. As you can see, it's got the light in there, knuckle, and then 2 jack stands. So as you can see, we've got a very comfortable setup here. We're gonna have access from the top, we're gonna have access from the bottom, so it should be pretty easy, guys. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so as you can see here, I've got my handy light, which I really love, and I'm gonna bring this GoPro right up in here so that you can see what's going on in between the fan, and there's the crank, right? And if we just move this camera, it's very, 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 very tight. Let's move the camera in here. There we go. You can see it's pretty simple routing. It's hard to really position the GoPro in here. It's very tight, very, very tight. But it's not really a problem. You can see there's the belt tensioner. So you just go in there with a 3/8 and take care of that. You release the tension, remove the belt, remove the 6 screws on the crank pulley. They're thread locked in with blue Loctite, so we're going to clean up that. I'll show that afterwards. Put some fresh Loctite and then install the new crank pulley and then get the new belt routed and then start putting everything back. So guys, you need a 3/8 inch small-headed breaker bar like this. If you don't have this, I mean, it's tight in there. So luckily I was able to, while putting tension in this very tight space with my left hand, remove the belt with my right hand. It's definitely the trickiest part, is accessing the belt tensioner with the right tool. So just a heads up, guys, try and get something like this, okay? A 3/8 inch breaker bar that has a very small head that pivots 180 like that. If you don't have that, I honestly couldn't find any combination other than that. Maybe somebody else could, hopefully chime in and give some pointers after I post this video, but that's the only thing I could find. And I also have this nice snap-on torque wrench with a pivoting head, and then obviously all of the universal joints, etc. So I could get those torques, those T50 torque screws out for the crank pulley. So thankfully that belt is off. I at least know now what the right combo is, so the installation should be a lot easier. But it did take me about 10 minutes of fussing around trying to find the right combo to get in between the rad hoses. There's an X brace as well there, and it's just a very tight space. So just a heads up, guys. So as you can see here, the belt is off. I'm getting the pulley off, OEM crank pulley off now, and I mean, everything is obviously, look how tight the space is here. Just to get the belt out, you've got to, wiggle it out, move it side to side. It's something. It's definitely not an American sports car. Corvettes and Camaros, once you've got, the little plastic parts, intake, etc. off, you've got plenty of space to work on the car. Obviously C7 Z06 is a bit tighter when it comes to like installing headers, etc. But the header install on the C7 is pretty intense. But this is time consuming. Knock off. So guys, as you could see, the crank we're actually turning over the engine, trying to loosen the crank T50 bolts. So I had to go ahead and get a bigger breaker bar, put a 24mm socket on it, put it in the crank, attach it to the crank bolt, and now I'm holding the crank and trying to undo the crank. This is insane. Got my light stuck up in there. Going after the crank here. Trying to get comfortable. Trying not to be blinded. Okay. So, I was warned that this would be quite something. So, wow. There we go. Got the first one loose. Now hopefully I didn't just strip that. No, I didn't. Thank God. So it's definitely an arm workout. So I hope you guys have good arms. Because yeah, this is definitely a workout. So what you want to do is you want to keep constant pressure because it's a T50, right? So you don't want to strip that bolt, even though they seem to be a high-grade bolt. You just want to be safe. So you want to keep constant pressure pushing towards the back of the car, towards the rear end of the car, and at the same time working these bolts out. Right now, I wish I could get an air tool to this, an impact wrench. Unfortunately, there's nothing that's gonna fit in there that has enough torque to get these loose. So this is a job. It's gonna take, I'm obviously gonna take a little beer break soon. This is gonna take, for sure, 30 to 40 minutes. Because it's just a tight space. And yeah, it requires a lot of elbow grease. There we go. There we go, the first one is out. You bitch. Red Loctite, guys. Red Loctite. Red Loctite on this. Just an update, guys. Red Loctite. I am not putting red Loctite back. It makes no sense. That'd be like putting red Loctite on your, you know, wheel nuts. It's probably not a fair comparison, but I'm going to do blue Loctite and tighten them down in a star pattern as you would your wheels, 48 foot-pounds. 3 out, 3 left to go, but now I really have got this down pat. Like I said, there's a learning curve, there's a technique. The trickiest part in all of this was actually tinkering around, trying to get the right extension length so that it fits in between the radiator shroud, the fan, and the sway bar and frame. It's a tight fit, and that's the trickiest part. So it's combining your tools, holding the crank put because of obviously the red Loctite makes it really intense to get out. It turns over the motor, which is insane. But we've got the technique now, we've got the right tools. I'll show you later, guys, all the tools that I used. But 3 bolts left to go. Removing the crank pulley, installing the new crank pulley, putting that belt back, tuning it. Can't wait. Stay tuned. Put rubbing alcohol, clean them up before I put blue Loctite. And guys, you gotta have a beer break, little 5-10 minutes. Get that elbow grease back into good shape, because I'll tell you, this requires quite a bit of elbow grease. I wish I could get an air impact gun in there. I really do, but nothing would fit in that tight space. Impossible. Hey guys, finally got the crank pulley out. Okay, these bolts literally took 10 to 15 minutes each to get out. Okay, I'm gonna clean them up. There's the crank pulley OEM. There's the VelocityAP pulley. As you could see, it's bigger, right? So 11.8% overdrive. So we're gonna overdrive the supercharger by 11.8%. So now it's to get the crank on, get the belt routed. The tensioner is tricky to access. The belt is going to be tricky, but I'm going to try and wrap this all up as quickly as possible now. This was definitely the longest part of this entire process. Okay, I seem to have found a spot where this belt actually wants to go down. Let's see what it looks like from the bottom. Okay, great. Okay, first pulley. This has to go idler. Hey guys, so it's Sunday morning now. I called it a day yesterday. I was trying to do the work myself from jack stands, and when you're doing it yourself, it's impossible to do the tensioner and get the belts over the supercharger from underneath the car. So I have an extra set of hands this morning. I'm gonna work from underneath. There's probably another way, but I was trying to route the crank pulley last. You're supposed to route the crank pulley first, and then use the slack the tension and get it over the top 2 pulleys, so the supercharger pulley and the idler pulley that's just to the right of it, like passenger side, just below. There's probably another way to do everything from the top, but yeah. So I was a bit tired yesterday. My arms were pretty much dead with the crank bolts. Getting them out was a major pain.